the Baal Shem Tov's birthday. And besides for it being the day he started learning the deepest secrets of the Torah. Today is also the day he started teaching this Torah to the world. It's also the date that the first Chabad Rebbe was born in the year 1745. So 47 years after the Baal Shem Tov was born, a new soul came to the world. When I say a new soul, most of our souls, to put it quite simply, are recycled. We are reincarnated. It's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. Our souls have a mission that was not yet fulfilled in a previous lifetime. Either because you were a woman and now you're a man, or you were a man and now you're a woman. There's mitzvahs that are associated with a man. There's mitzvahs that are associated exclusively to a woman. So to fulfill all the mitzvahs, you got to have a few lifetimes. If you're a Kohen, if you're a king, there's a whole bunch of status, a whole bunch of lifetimes it takes to fulfill the entire Torah. So, but the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman, the first Chabad Rebbe, was a new soul. He revolutionized Judaism and especially Hasidus. We're going to learn some of his teachings tonight, some of his stories, amazing. But his main book he wrote was called the Tanya, which is the foundational book of Chabad. It's why I'm alive here today, actually. My parents were changed and decided to make a life-altering change in their life because they studied this book called the Tanya, realizing that I have a purpose and a mission of why I'm here. And even if I have some rough patches in my life, it's part of the plan, and I'm meant to struggle with them and overcome them. All that is part of Tanya that changed millions of lives, changed the world. So he was born today, the 18th of Elul, also. Amazing. It's just an amazing day. So it's definitely a time to say l'chaim. So I don't know, I'm on seltzer here, soda, but whatever you're on, let's make a blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol niyah b'dvaro. But l'chaim, we should really put ourselves into the learning, explore, and and discuss it, and always grow in our learning. And ultimately, if you're growing in your learning, you're growing in your observance, and you're growing your soul and expanding the horizons of what is possible for you to do. So that's what today is all about, the 18th of Elul. All right, having given you that intro, we are ready to continue. So last week, we were learning this really cool class about Elijah. Eliyahu Hanavi in Hebrew. He was a great prophet, an awesome guy who made showdowns with the idol worshippers of his day, questioned the future of Judaism, did great miracles, and was sent up to the heavens in a fiery chariot, like we said last week. But today we're going to learn a little more. Oh, and we also learned some cool stuff of him, why he attends the bris and why he attends the Seder, some really nice stuff. But today what we're going to be learning is expanding and getting a little deeper into not just what Elijah was and what he represents, but also why was he the one chosen to be the one to herald in Moshiach? What's with Elijah? Really the second half of the class, we're going to do some intros, some texts, but the second half of the class is really, really meaningful. It brings stuff home with Hasidus, with understanding Elijah, with understanding Mashiach. There's some really nice points to it, and that will be the second half of the class. So let's just dig in. There's a Talmudic source. It's a little deep. It's a Mishnah from Tractate Ediyot. If you're looking in a book, it's on page 49 of your textbook, but have no fear. We have the text right up on the screen that I'll be posting. It tells us about other roles of Elijah that's going to happen. Why is Elijah going to come? Some people say he's there, and I like this. I'm going to read the text because without understanding some of the background, it's a little bit tricky. There's some people that they buy their way into power. I just had a story with someone in the community, like they're being bullied around by people with money that are just have money, and therefore they own and they expect. So Elijah is going to set things right. The people that buy their way in, and it's not just financially, but the people that are bluff and just convince and lie their way into community, their bluff is going to be exposed. And the people that were distanced, but they're really good-hearted, kind, soulful people, they're going to be brought near. According to one opinion, that's what Elijah is going to do. He's going to set things right. He's going to recalibrate the souls to see who's really supposed to be where. He's going to push away those who are meant to be far, those evildoers and people that are just bluffed their way in. That's one opinion. Another one is he's there just to bring peace. So it's three opinions. It's what Talmud does. We love giving opinions. So this is from the Mishnah. It's a little bit deep, but together I'm sure we could do anything. So we're going to figure this out together. Let me go back here. Let's start from the beginning. Okay, I hope everyone can see the screen. Days are coming. We're learning part 1 now, a man of many roles. So we're going to see some other roles that Elijah is going to play. Again, a little bit of a deep text, but let's go hand in hand and make this clear. Rabbi Joshua said, I have received a tradition from Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai was one of the great leaders of the Jews. So Rabbi Joshua is saying, I heard this from Rabbi Yochanan, who heard it from his teacher, and his teacher heard it from his teacher, all the way back as halacha given to Moses from Sinai. So this is a literally tradition going from generation to generation, that Elijah will not come to pronounce unclean or to pronounce clean, to put away or to bring near, but to put away those brought near by force, and to bring near those put away by force. So again, a little bit cryptic, but he's saying his job is not to say you are impure, and his job is not to say you are pure. He's not there to pronounce who is pure, who is righteous. That's not his job. He's not putting labels on people. But people that put their way in by force, put themselves into positions and brought themselves near, but by buying it out by force, he's going to take care of that. He's going to push them aside. And those that were pushed away aside by force are going to be taken care of also. Let me just explain that a little more. It's just to give some historical context, because to make it make sense a little bit. It's sad to say this. There's been a lot of corruption. Let's be honest. Let's be frank. Let's put it out on the table. Listen, Rosh Hashanah is coming. We've got to be honest with each other. We've got to be honest with ourselves. So in good spirit of high holiday season, there was corruption during the Second Temple time. So we're going back over 2,000 years. There were people who were not fit and worthy, but they had money, and they bought their way into power. Power by the Jews in the olden days was to be the Kohen Gadol, to be in charge of the temple, to be able to enter the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh Kadashim, on Yom Kippur, was a big honor. It was a big responsibility of representing everyone. So it used to be the person most positioned for the job. It had to be a descendant of Aaron, someone who's full of love and peace, kindness and good heart, and someone who's extremely righteous. But during Rabbi Yochanan's time, during the generation going back to before the destruction, there was mass corruption. Guy with a lot of money wasn't even a Kohen; he just bought his way in. Unfortunately, they thought that with their money they could accomplish anything. They actually never made it past the year, because Yom Kippur, if the guy is not worthy going into the Holy of Holies, he ain't coming out. So every year there was a revolving door, kind of the Kohen Gadol getting a new person. That position got a new person. So those people that put their way in by force or were forced out not in an appropriate way, Eliyahu is going to put things right. He's going to set the bar straight. Does that make sense? I hope I explained that a little bit clearly. I'm excited for that time. But that's only one opinion. What I like about this opinion, guys, is that this is a tradition. Rabbi Joshua is saying, I heard this from my teacher, Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan heard it from his teacher. Do you know who Rabbi Yochanan's teacher was? The old Hillel, the great Hillel, with the stories of to teach the whole Torah standing on one foot. There's a lot of great stories. It says about Hillel that he was so poor, but he wasn't let into the Talmud, to the academy. You know why? Because he had to pay. Teachers needed to get paid. So they didn't let him in. He was so desperate to learn Torah, but he was so poor, he climbed to the ceiling, he climbed to the roof, and he listened in by the skylight. He listened in from the top. And one day, the people were learning inside, unaware that Hillel was on top. But it was daytime, but it was very dark. There was a massive snowstorm outside, and it was a record snow in Israel. It doesn't snow that much. Now we're dealing with global warming and record heat. Back then, there was record cold. And when they went to the skylight on the ceiling, on the roof, to shovel off the snow, they saw almost a dead body of Hillel covered under snow, and his ear was stuck to the window. So they right away brought him back to life, and they said whoever wants to come in can come in without paying. And that's actually what Chabad's rule is, right? We don't pay to pray. We never charge membership for this exact reason. Of course, we need donations, and it's the only fuel to allow us to do what we do. And we don't get any grants or other funding. So, of course, every donation is valuable, important, and crucial. But we'll never say you can only come if you pay $1,800 a year, because some people want to pay more and are able to. Some people have to pay less. But whatever. Anyway, I'm getting carried away. But the beautiful part is this was a tradition from Rabbi Yochanan to his teacher, whose name was Hillel. Anyone know? I think Gail Giacomini, you're our Talmudist on the call and on the class, and I see you're present. So I'm going to ask you if you're familiar. Do you know who Hillel's teacher was? It's a pretty cool guy. Their names were.
I forgot right now. I can't pull it out of my head. I should, but I can't.
No, of course. That's what I'm here for. That's why I get paid the big bucks, Gail. So his name was Shmaya and Avtalion. The reason why I just thought they're an important piece to the puzzle, because they were Hillel's teacher, but they were both converts. They both converted to Judaism, and they became the leaders that taught Hillel, who taught Rabbi Yochanan, where all of our Torah comes from is through that chain. They were the link in a chain for Moses. So anyway, tradition is very valuable, and every person does their part. But I'm getting way carried away just on one little page. I hope you guys could see me, at least in a speaker view or something, because otherwise you're just seeing a text. I don't know if you prefer just to see the text, whatever makes you happy. But I'm going to continue on the second page here. So that's one opinion of what Elijah is doing, is to set things right. To those who forced their way in, he's going to push them away. But the family of Bet Sirpa was on the other side of the Jordan. This is still Rabbi Joshua speaking. Was on the other side of the Jordan. Hold on one second. I got it. There we go. Was on the other side of the Jordan. And Ben Zion, I like that name because that's my dad's name actually, Ben Zion, put it away by force. And yet another family was there, and Ben Zion brought it there by force. Ooh, hold on. Oops. Okay. It is cases such as these that Elijah will come to pronounce unclean or to pronounce clean, to put away or to bring near. So whatever, that's a pretty long first opinion, but the point of the first opinion is he's going to set things right. He's going to show people's bluff, and if people force their way in, either because of money or because of pressure, he's going to push them away. And people that were pushed away for no good reason, they're going to be brought back. One opinion. Opinion number two, Rabbi Judah says to bring near but not to put away. His job is not to make fights. His job will just be to bring close those who were pushed away for no good reason. He's not going to push away those who bought their way in, even though maybe they deserve it. That's not Elijah's job. His job is just to bring near. That's opinion number two, Rabbi Yehuda. Finally, the third opinion, Rabbi Shimon says to conciliate disputes. He's going to make peace. And the sages say, neither to put away nor to bring near, but to make peace in the world. For it is said, behold, I send to you Elijah the prophet, etc., and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to their parents. I love that expression, that he's going to bring people back together. He's going to bring the heart of children who don't speak to their parents anymore, or parents who disown their children. He's going to bring pure honesty, peace, truth, love, kindness, all those good things he's going to make happen in the world. That's Elijah's job. So we have 3 or 4 opinions. I kind of feel Rabbi Shimon is a pretty similar opinion to the sages, meaning it's the idea of bringing peace and taking away any disputes, compromise. Either way, it's just, we understand that Elijah's role is far more than just simply arriving and announcing Mashiach. He's going to be doing kind of a lot of things. He's going to be bringing peace amongst people, amongst families, showing people's bluff, setting things right. But let's elaborate a little more on peace. We're going to go straight to text 2. This is from the Rambam, who comments on this Mishnah that we're just quoting now. So the Rambam had his own commentary on the Mishnah. And the Rambam says, text 2, if you have a book, it's on page 50. Otherwise, let's just read it on the screen. Robin, do you want to read this?
Sure. The sages say that there are no injustices with regard to lineage. Rather, everyone's assumed lineage will ultimately be traced to the truth, for the Torah is the parent of all truth. Rather, the injustices Elijah will indeed arbitrate will be wrongdoings between one person and another, for they are petty, causing one to destroy another with their hatred. Elijah will come to remove this hatred and restore peace.
Awesome. Okay, so the point is peace. It's a good word to know. It's a good thing to have. We definitely need it, and Elijah's going to do that. But there's going to be something else. We've touched this a little before. We're going to touch it again now. There's going to be another class on this topic that we're going to give in the fall, God willing, that is going to speak about it more. But Elijah's going to be the one to make the resurrection happen. So this is a really strong Jewish belief. It's actually the 13th principle of Judaism that the Maimonides himself lists, the 13 tenets of our faith. Number 13 being, we believe with complete faith in the resurrection of the dead. When we are, God forbid, at a funeral and we say goodbye to loved ones, we don't fully say goodbye. We say we'll see you soon. Because we believe there will come a time of the resurrection when all of our loved ones will be back with us here. Not us waiting to go there, but according to the Jerusalem Talmud, Elijah is going to be the one at the time of the resurrection to make it happen. Let's see that from the Talmud in text 3. This is actually from the Jerusalem Talmud, so it's not the common Talmud that most of us study and we normally quote, which is the Babylonian Talmud. This is what's known as the Jerusalem Talmud. That's text number 3, and let's see what it says there. Let's see, Maddie, I have you next. Okay. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Is it starting with resurrection?
You got it.
Resurrection of the dead brings us to Elijah, as it is stated. Lo, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and awesome day of God, that he may turn the heart of the fathers back through the children, and the heart of the children back through their fathers.
Awesome. So what we see from there is that actually Kabbalah says, what Maddie just said, Kabbalah says, the deeper teachings say, that the key to the resurrection is being held by Elijah. And Elijah is going to be the one that has access to it and bring it about. So the point of all these texts, and we're reading it rather quickly, like I said before, the second part is really what I want to try to focus on. But we see different roles of Mashiach. He's going to be the one to bring the resurrection. He's going to be the one to bring peace, all these awesome ideas, or to push away those who force their way in by money or whatever else. But also, the word Mashiach, does anyone know what Mashiach means? Mashiach means anointing. The way it used to work in the olden days is that a king would be anointed. There was this whole coronation process. We sounded the shofar, which we do on Rosh Hashanah, almost like crowning God as king. But there's also an anointing process. We don't do it anymore because we don't have a king. But it was something with oil. And it says that Samuel, the first prophet, Shemuel, anointed Saul, and then anointed David a couple of years later. And that continued that tradition. This prophet would anoint the king. But obviously that stopped. And when Mashiach comes, Elijah will be the one to anoint him as king. Another one, this is actually, I think, my favorite. I love archaeology. It's one of I don't know. I just love it. Whenever they find a coin from the Second Temple era, and it's minted with the Star of David or whatever, all these amazing things, I feel so I get goosebumps. It's like, wow, you could really see what they were holding and see where they were living. One of the things Elijah will do is he will dig up and find for us all the artifacts that belongs in the temple that were hidden. It says when Solomon, let me undo this for a second. Okay, sorry about that. When Solomon, when he built the temple, he actually built an escape route, not really to run away, but a place to hide holy objects that he didn't want to get taken away, to be removed. So he built this underground hideout that right now it's on a status, I forgot what it's called, it's not status quo, but basically no one's allowed to dig there. With Jordan, they have this treaty, there's no digging allowed. But it says when Elijah comes, he's going to find for us important parts that we need. The ark, somewhere down under, he's gonna excavate it. He's gonna find it. Another thing that I can't wait to see is there's actually a jar. The Torah says to Moses that you should, with all the manna that fell down from the heaven for 40 years. God didn't want the Jews to ever forget and not be grateful, to see how God took care of us. So he told Moses, gather some of the manna, collect it, put it in a jar, and put it in the ark, so that for all eternity we will remember and put our faith in God, that he provides. The trust is in God, not in the stock market and not in your employer. Of course, you have to work well, but ultimately you're in God's hands. And the manna is a reminder, a symbol of that. So under there, I can't wait to see manna. I would love to know what it tastes like, what it looks like, what it feels like. And somewhere under there, Elijah will dig it up, know where it is, and hand it over. There's the staff of Aaron, that when there was a rivalry and there was someone whose name was Korach, and he tried to question Aaron's leadership as king, as priest. So there was a whole system that God put to prove who was in charge, and it was Aaron. And his beautiful staff blossomed with almonds. So there's an almond tasting staff that's somewhere under the Temple Mount. And Elijah's going to bring it back for us. So all these cool stuff, but Elijah's going to be the one to dig it up. He's going to be the archaeologist leading the way, which I think is really cool. And I see I'm getting some private messages that people love archaeology too. Cool. Anyway, so that's a really awesome thing. So the tablets, I guess so. I mean, I think the tablets are in the ark, Marcia, so I'm assuming it's going to be there also. Doesn't say that, I don't have it here, but I think so. And then just the other day, the question I was thinking about was what exactly was manna. So actually check it up, and if you want, Ava, if you text or email me after, I'll tell you the exact source. Towards the end of the book of, not towards the end, hold on, around chapter 16 of Exodus, in the Torah portion of Beshalach, and then again in the book of Numbers, in the Torah portion of Baalotcha, around chapter 12 or something, or 11, there's this incredible description. Because the Jews couldn't stand the manna. They complained. Why do we have this? We want meat. We want fish. So, and the Torah was describing how beautiful the manna was. It was able to taste like almost anything you wanted. It looked like coriander seed toasted with honey graze or something. The Torah actually describes exactly what it looked like, what it can taste like. It's good stuff. Anyway, so if you email me for the source, I'll quote you the verse. I'll email you the verse. Actually, if you go on jewishnavaru.com/Tanakh, you'll actually find every verse translated in Hebrew into English with Rashi commentaries in English. It's all there. Anyway, and one final thing, and I'm assuming those who have studied Talmud have come across this. I think I mentioned this before. There's over 317 times in the Talmud where after debating and unsure what the answer is, the Talmud just says teku, which means we'll let it stand until Elijah comes. Elijah will come and answer those questions. So that's another role of Elijah. Just to review some of the roles that we've been learning is He's going to resurrect the dead. He's going to give us answers to questions that were unresolved. He's going to bring peace and arouse us to better times, to treat each other kinder and do teshuvah. And let's just do one more text on this topic, and then we're going to go to the more exciting part of the class. Let's see. The following text is by someone whose name was Rabbi Yom Tov Heller. He was known as the Tosfos Yom Tov, and he writes also a commentary on the Mishnah. So this is from his commentary on that Mishnah that we quoted earlier. Vivian, I have you next. You want to read?
Okay. Elijah will end all disagreement. This is the basis for the popular notion that the word
Teku is the Hebrew.
mentioned in the Talmud is an acronym for.
You could just skip to the English.
Okay. The Tishbite will resolve all questions and inquiries. The simple interpretation reads it as a portmanteau of the words, leave the matter at status quo.
Okay.
Just so you know, this Yom Tov Lipman is my 11th great grandfather.
You never told me that. I would have given you a front seat at the synagogue if I would have known that. Are you serious, Vivian?
I'm dead serious.
How do you know that? Do you have like that lineage? That's amazing.
I have, because somebody does my GEN on my Jenny.com, so he follows it.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so if that's the case, Vivian, have you never hear me share a story of Yom Tov Lipman? Yom Tov Heller?
No. Well,
okay, I'll try to. It's a beautiful long story. I'm going to keep it to under 3-4 minutes because we're in the middle of a class, but I can't go on if I know if you could share the story is this from your father's side or your mother's side?
Father's.
Awesome. Okay, so listen to this crazy story. The person who gave me smicha, the person who ordained me as a rabbi, in the late, his name is Rabbi Shachat. In the late 80s, he was asked to speak to a group of priests that were getting together, and they wanted to hear from a rabbi. So every now and then I do it here in Novato. I get together and I speak at a church, and I explain to them Bible stuff. It's fun, actually. They actually listen and study. They enjoy it. I'm kidding. I have a good time there. But anyway, he didn't know what to speak about. What am I going to speak to a whole bunch of priests? Like, what topic should I choose? So he asked the Rebbe in New York, what topic? The Rebbe said, choose charity. Charity is universal. It's something everyone does. It's something everyone needs to do. So speak about the importance of charity. So Rabbi Shachat, in Buffalo, he spoke to a group of priests. He shared a story of charity. And the story he shared is about Rabbi Yom Tov Heller, this your great-grandfather. The story was that during his time, there was an extreme miser. He was the leader of his community in Poland, and he had he took over from the Maral of Prague, where he was a chief rabbi in Czechoslovakia, and he had a great following. But there was a big miser that, as try as they may, he never gave a dime. He was so mean about it. So when the guy died, the Chaber Kadisha, who are the people in charge of burial, this guy never gave a dime and never helped anyone. So they kind of buried him at the edge of the cemetery. No great honor. He never did any good deeds. Goes to the edge. Within a few weeks, people were knocking on the rabbi's door saying, I have no food for Shabbos. I need help. So he's like, what did you do until now? Well, until now, the baker would always give me free challah and give me free bread and cake and food that I need for my family. And now he stopped. So they call in the baker, and the baker says, I can't do it anymore. I can't do it anymore. Why? So he says, I was sworn into secrecy, but that miser would actually pay for everyone who was poor that couldn't afford. He would give an open check every Shabbos. But he did it on condition that I would never say. And if I would say, he would stop giving. It had to be anonymous. And the story, it's a longer story. The next week, the way they figured this out is there was also the butcher that couldn't give. They realized that this miser was actually supporting the entire community, but doing it anonymously for so many years, for decades. And they realized, oh my gosh, we buried him at the edge of the city. We gave him no honor, but it's too late. So Rabbi Heller says that when I die, I want to be buried next to him. And that's where he's buried. When he died, he's buried next to this miser that really was a big tzaddik, was a righteous person. So he shared this story, Rabbi Shachat shared the story in Buffalo. And there was one of the priests that came over that said, I need to hear the story again. It was later in the evening. He says, come to my hotel room, and if you really want, tomorrow morning I'll share the story. So he came to the hotel room. Rabbi Shachat repeated the story. He said, repeat it again. I don't believe it. He repeated it again. He said, I have to tell you something. My great-great-great-grandfather, the priest is telling Rabbi Shachat, was that miser. Because my mother, who grew up during the Holocaust, she was saved with an orphanage. She ended up marrying, she left her Judaism, she kept it a secret. She married an American soldier who was very religious. And the condition was Judaism is not spoken about. It's forbidden. So she never spoke about it. But her great-great-great-grandfather was this miser. And they had a child. And the child went to seminary and became a priest. But on her deathbed, she told her son, I want you to know who our great-great-grandfather was, and told me this exact story of the miser. So that means that this priest was really Jewish. So Rabbi Shachat says, you're Jewish. That's amazing. You have to start studying. And they said goodbye, and that was it. 15 years later, in 2001, Rabbi Shachat was in Israel, praying at the Western Wall, and he gets a tap on his shoulder from a religious guy with a big hat, long payas, and he says, do you recognize me? He says, I don't know who you are. What's your name? He says his name. He still didn't recognize him. He says, I was that priest from 15 years ago that I found out I was Jewish. Cool ending to the story. Rabbi Shachat found out around 5-10 years ago that he is a great-great-great-great-grandson of Rabbi Heller. So for all those years in their community, this miser was helping Rabbi Heller's community, and years later, their offspring, Rabbi Heller's offspring, brought back to the fold the offspring of this miser's great-great-grandson, the only remnants of Judaism left in the family, and that was a priest, and really brought them back to Judaism. So anyway, that's some cousin of yours, Vivian, and I have a lot of people in the Chabad community that are my teachers and very close to them. A lot of their names are Yom Tov, actually, named after this rabbi. Anyway, so for another time, I have to tell you more about him.
But I just want to say also the story you just told, you had sent it years ago as an article on one of your weekly emails, and I read the story at our family gatherings. I cry at the very end every single time. It's the same story you just told. Love it.
Wow, thank you. And actually,
it's called Israel Goy. It was called the Israel Goy.
Wow, amazing.
That's the article.
Awesome. All right, thank you. Thank you, Vivian. And I shared it Rosh Hashanah, like in 2016. For those that have attended our Rosh Hashanah services, I shared that story also. So cool. Thank you, Vivian, for bringing that up. So the point of what he's trying to say, and definitely you should understand it, it's in your blood, is that the point is that Elijah will be the one that's going to answer all the unresolved questions. On the status quo, he's going to be the one to answer. And anyway, there's a lot more to study, but we'll keep it at that for now, where we see Elijah has many other roles. Elijah has roles. We're going to continue in the class now. We're going to skip to the text 5. I hope you could see the screen. So he'll be the mouthpiece to answer all questions. So anyway, what we just learned until now was Elijah has other roles in the redemption, namely rousing the Jews to teshuvah, resurrecting the dead, resolving all the unresolved matters in Torah, like Vivian just shared from her ancestry. And now we'll continue to section 2 of section 2 is when will he come? We touched on this in a previous class. Will he be coming before Moshiach, after Moshiach? There is some debate about it. Let's just see it rather quickly. A debate that Rambam tries to explain, but I think just leaves it pretty vague. Let's see what Rambam, Maimonides, what he says. Let me just see who's next. Leslie, do you want to read this one?
The simple interpretation of the prophet's words appears to imply that the war of Gog and Magog will take place at the beginning of the Messianic age after Moshiach's arrival. Before the war of Gog and Magog, a prophet will arise to inspire Israel to be upright and prepare their hearts. As the scripture states, "Behold, I am sending you Elijah." By contrast, there are some sages who say Elijah's coming will precede Mashiach's arrival.
A little more, I think.
Okay. All these and similar matters cannot be definitely known by man until they occur, for these matters are undefined in the prophet's words, and even the wise men have no established tradition regarding these matters except their own interpretation of the verses. Therefore, there is a controversy among them regarding these matters.
I think it goes even a little further. You got a big reading. Go.
Okay. Regardless of the debate concerning these questions, neither the order of the occurrence of these events nor their precise detail are among the fundamental principles of the faith. A person should not occupy himself with the Aggadot and the homiletics concerning these and similar matters, nor should he consider them as essentials, for study of them will neither bring fear nor love of God.
Awesome. Okay, so the Rambam kind of leads it largely to the future to see how the chips will fall, but at least some reconciliation is that Eliyahu will come before Mashiach to announce his arrival, after Mashiach to help with bringing peace. But anyway, there's conflicting opinions, but let's dig into the most important part of the class of what does Elijah have to do with Mashiach? We see he's going to do all these fancy roles. He holds the key to the resurrection. But this is actually my favorite part of the class. I will stop sharing for just a few minutes to explain what's coming up. I just enjoy this. If you want to walk away with something in the class, besides for history of who Elijah was and roles that he will play, hopefully this will be the important part that hopefully will resonate. Why is Elijah even necessary? Is this some Batman and Robin where Mashiach needs a sidekick to toot his horn and to say, everyone, Mashiach is here? What is it about Elijah that really makes him worthy or makes him the right guy to say Mashiach is coming? What's his connection to Mashiach? So there's multiple ways to answer this question. We're going to explore some of them. And use a pathway to discover yet again what this has to do with us, which is always what we want to end the class with is how is this relevant? How is this relevant to us? This whole discussion, what does it make a difference in my life? So let's dig in to hopefully a very meaningful discussion from the Rebbe and from other commentaries from other great rabbis that explain the significance of Mashiach, of Elijah to Mashiach. And the explanation is like this. Elijah, according to the Rebbe, and I'll explain how, Elijah simply personifies what Mashiach is about. Let me explain what that means. So again, the personification of Mashiach is Elijah. So we have to understand what that means. What we'll learn in the future lessons about Mashiach, we'll learn that era of Mashiach is not an isolated event. It's not, it arrived. It's the plateau towards what we are all striving during our entire time of exile. Jews on their deathbed, walking, God forbid, into the gas chambers, the words that they said when they breathed their last, Ani ma'amin b'emunah shalema b'viat HaMashiach. I believe with complete faith in the coming of Mashiach. It's been something we've been working towards. It's a destination. We have to know we're on a journey, but we're not in a wandering journey like in 40 years. We're on a journey towards a better time, towards a revelation of godliness in the world, towards a strong light that is seen and felt and appreciated and real. That's Mashiach. Once that light will be here, there will be no more death. There will be no more corruption, no more jealousy, no more anger, no more fear. All love, no more war. But it's all the result of this light of God that's going to be real. So for now, God actually, it's a beautiful part of our world. God made an imperfect world. It's a beautiful world, but it's not perfect. God expects humanity to perfect it. He leaves it up to us to own it. He makes it ours to repair it. In English, or sorry, in Hebrew, it's tikkun olam, to repair an imperfect world. That's our job. And yes, it's planting trees, but it's a lot more. The mitzvahs we do are perfecting our world. The light that is being drawn into the world through the mitzvahs is the goal. And the ultimate goal of it is going to be Moshiach, when we finished our mission, when all those mitzvahs are done and every part of the world is covered with this light, with this mitzvahs. So that's a little bit about Mashiach. And the entire time we are in exile, we're making the world holier. We're supposed to merge heaven to earth. We're supposed to allow a harmony between godliness and worldliness. That for now, look at many people, and it's not to judge, but many people feel, I'm here today because of my own hard work. And yes, it takes hard work, but it's the grace of God. It's the hand of God guiding you, watching you, protecting you, loving you. And many times we kind of forget that part. You know, it says about Pharaoh in Egypt, he considered himself to be a god. He said these words that we quote in Tanakh. He said, Li Ya'ori Vani Satani. The river, the Nile is mine. I made it. That's what he convinced his generation. And many people convince themselves and convince others, I made myself. I'm not just saying it from an atheistic standpoint, but all the wealth is all mine. I don't have to give it. It's mine. It belongs to me. And an amazing thing, that's what worldliness can be. You get carried away, distracted. Godliness is the opposite. It's all God. Our job here is to be a conduit for God in the world, to be a channel of God. And sometimes we could be stuck between the two. Mashiach is going to harmonize that. It's a perfect marriage between heaven and earth. It's earth and heaven totally united. That's Mashiach. In other words, all of our work that we've been working for millennia is to make this material world godly. And when Mashiach comes, we're going to see that godliness shine in the world. So, in other words, I don't know if I said other words yet, but our job is transforming what's material to spiritual. Take our money and turn that into a mitzvah. It's called charity. Take wine, which could be used for negative, and used for lightheadedness and whatever, and make a mitzvah out of it, make kiddush. Take wood and make it into an ark for a Torah scroll. Everything we have, we could be transforming it to holiness. Take wicks and wax and make it into a Shabbat candle or a Havdalah candle. Right? That's everything we do. Take our time and utilize it properly. You're making a transformation of everything. So that's the epitome of what Elijah stands for. This transformation and the combination of the opposites, taking what's mundane and unholy and turning it into holy. That's Elijah in a nutshell. And I want to explain to you how that's Elijah. Are there any questions before we go further? Just because I'm saying some heavy-duty concepts here. I always think of Mashiach as being just as so much of the Torah metaphoric, not an actual person or king. So Mashiach there's an era called the Mashiach era, and this was in response to a private question. And there's also a person who will be called the King Mashiach. And I think I explained that in one of the earlier classes. And there's still so much more we have to unpack about Mashiach, but it's both. It's a person, a king, and Maimonides explains to us how we know who's the right fit person for the job. But the era is also called the era of Mashiach. So to explain this better, of the time of Mashiach being the perfect harmony that we've been dreaming and waiting for, of the fusion of heaven and earth, of the illumination of darkness of this world with godly light, I want to explain how that's epitomized by Elijah, by contrasting Elijah with Moses. We know that Moses, does anyone know what his real name was? You know Moses, he got his name Moses when he was a few months old. He was around 4 months old, 3 months old, when Batya, the daughter of Pharaoh, was bathing in the Nile. She saw a river, she saw a basket in the river, a baby crying, took him, and she named him Moses, because the word to draw from the Nile is Mishitihu. I drew him. So that's how he got the name Moshe, from the word Mishitihu, which is to draw. But he was given a name by his own parents. Yocheved was his mom, and she named him Tevye. Tuvia or Tevye was his birth name. He had other names as well, right? Because he was the last son born to that family. So usually in Yiddish the expression is chaparain. Try to pack in as many names as you can. So you have many youngsters, the youngest in the family, sometimes they have like 5 names. Like I have a sweet Russian family that they have an only son. They have a daughter and a son. So they gave him all their both grandfathers and I think great grandfathers. He carries their name because they had only one boy to as the victim. But the point of what I'm trying to say is that they called him Tuvia, which means from the word tov, like mazel tov. Tov means good, and they called him good because when he was born, there was this incredible, strong, powerful light that shone in their home. Meaning their home shone a light from him. He shone this natural, powerful light that we don't really understand, but that's what happened. Which means most of us, we have a body that is material and wants food, and we have a soul that wants God, or wants mitzvahs. Usually they don't get along. I have anger from my body, and I have a soul that wants God. Usually we go in opposite directions. By Moshe, his soul was in a house of his body that was fully in line with his soul. There was no struggle. His body was a translation of his soul. So to affect that, the Torah says that his home filled with light. It was like the body, which is like housing the soul, was infused with light around. Meaning Moshe was there was no transition period. From his soul, it went straight into his body, was the full, powerful, godly light. There was no dimming of his holiness of his soul. His intensity of his soul made it right into his body. There was times when his face shone so deeply, so strongly. For those that are familiar with different passages of the Torah, it says that he had to veil his face because it was so strong that no one could look at him. They had to veil his face. So his body was just a reflection of his soul. It was like one big transition. One big fusion, one big connection. And in fact, he was a preemie. He didn't fully develop. He was born early. What does that tell us? That his body wasn't even fully developed. It was just a soul meaning coming out. So what I'm trying to say is Moses, on one hand, was his body was just a continuation of his soul's light. Whereas Elijah was the opposite. Elijah had lots of struggles. It wasn't natural for him. He had many interesting struggles in his life. And for those that took our Hebrew reading class, you may be familiar that the name Elijah in Hebrew is Eliyahu. It has the same numerology. It has the same numerical value as the word behemah, which is an animal. That's right. Eliyahu, has the same number, 52. If you take those letters of his name, Eliyahu, those 6 letters, equal it all together. The Aleph equals 1, the Lamed equals 30. Go through the name, you'll get the same as behemah, which also equals 52. Because for those that have learned Tanya with me, he had an animal soul that was strong. There was selfish desires that he had to overcome, and he did overcome them. He became the greatest prophet. But it didn't come easy. Moses, it came easy. It was natural. His body was just a reflection of his soul. But by Elijah, it was a struggle. It was transforming his body to be in line with his soul. So I know it's a pretty Kabbalistic, deep concept, but really that's what I do and you do every day. We're taking what's mundane and making it holy. We're taking what's simple and making it pure. We're taking what's normal and making it magical. That's my job. That's your job. That's what we do with right now. We're doing it on Zoom. We took what's internet, and it could be used for something illegal or inappropriate or whatever, or schmutzig is the word I'm looking for, dirty, and we're making it into something so holy. We're learning Torah. We're talking about Moshiach, and we're able to do it uniting, which itself feels good. So we're doing this transformation every day. Every moment of our day is supposed to be infused with this transformation. But who is the epitome of this transformation? Elijah. Because he was the epitome of struggle and overcoming it. Moses was not. Moses was a good guy. He was a holy Jew. He was the holiest of the holy. But it came easy for him. He was born gifted with a natural light that just infused through his body. Whereas Elijah struggled to be who he was. And really, that's the whole story of how to bring Mashiach. In the struggle, finding the way to overcome it and bring light. We all know that the darker the dark is, the brighter the light is in that room. When you have a very dark room and you light it up, the light shines through that darkness. But if you light a candle in broad daylight, the light doesn't really mean much. So if you're a tzaddik and it comes easy, it's like a strong light in broad daylight. That's what Moshe was. It was natural. It was there. It was already light. Elijah was in a place of wants and desires and selfishness, which was normal. We all have that. It was animalistic, and he was able to make that and kiss that with God. He was able to take that and transform it to holiness. That's the epitome of Mashiach, and therefore Elijah, who epitomizes that, will be the one who is very strongly connected with Mashiach. Is that clear? Okay, I'm sure there's a lot to talk about on there, but I have a lot more we need to try to cover. I'm just going to read Maddie's comment. It's very inspiring that Elijah had to work on himself and was still a prophet. It's a brilliant lesson as to why Elijah. Thank you very much. Nice to hear. From Gail, not only an animal, but a huge animal. Oh, a behemoth. Okay, cool. They're very good. Yes, a bigger animal. Thank you. Moses is a way cooler name. Wow, it's even cooler, a powerful light. He was born enlightened. That's exactly it. He was born enlightened. He sounds like a great being that people in other cultures call the guru. And you know what? He was the most humble person, and he died that way, as extremely humble. We don't even know where he's buried. And actually, because they didn't want to turn his burial ground into a guru, I don't know what you call it, but they didn't want to make that place into an idol worshipped place. You need tissue? Yeah. Where's mommy? Okay. Here, take the tissue. I'll come soon. Okay, so let's continue. Let's see what that means. Actually, I would love for you to see it in the Rebbe's words. Gail Farkas, I have you next. If you're okay, I'm going to share the screen. And I don't know if you need glasses. I could zoom in if that's easier. But hold on one second. Elijah the prophet, part 2. Why Elijah? This is what I've been waiting for. Go for it. This is from the Rebbe. Take it away, Gail. Oh, you know what? Sorry, Gail, you're muted. I'll ask to unmute, see if that works.
Okay.
You got it. Go for it.
All right. Elijah's unique association with heralding the redemption can be understood by way of explaining the difference between him and Moses. When Moses was born, the house was filled with light. But at the end of the day, that light didn't penetrate his material body. And thus his body was ultimately buried.
Hold on. Let me turn the page. Here you go. Continue.
Elijah, by contrast, was of different cloth. He transformed his material body so much so that he ascended alive to the heavens. This then is his connection to the redemption, for the redemption is all about all flesh together shall see that the mouth of God spoke, namely that the material flesh will be transformed so much that it will actually see godliness.
Amazing, Gail. So, and what you quoted was a verse from the prophets where Nowadays, we could only feel godliness. You could feel good when you do a mitzvah. You could maybe even get goosebumps when you hear Kaddish said for a loved one. But when Mashiach comes, the mitzvah effect will be visible and your flesh will be able to see God and the effect of your mitzvah. But the point is that it's our body that will be transformed, and that full fusion, which is what Elijah stands for. Awesome. So that's one explanation of why it's going to be Elijah. Now I'm going to go on with something that's really cool. I'm going to tell you one of the great stories, and today is the best day to say this story, because as I mentioned at the beginning of the class, today is the birthday of the Baal Shem Tov and the Alter Rebbe, two great luminaries of Hasidus. Listen to one story or debate that went on in these Hasidic academies. There was a massive fight that broke out. There was a student of the Baal Shem Tov, and his name was, and later of the Maggid of Mezrich, the second Hasidic Rebbe. His name was Reb Pinchas Karatzer, and he loved the teachings of the Kabbalah and deeper insights of Hasidus, but they were so secretive, they were so deep, that even though the Baal Shem Tov, their teacher, said, you got to spread this out, you got to teach this, you got to share the love, he felt that there needs to still be some containment. You can't just teach this to the world because it's too deep. They're not going to be able to truly appreciate it. And one day, all hell broke loose in the academy when they found a Hasidic text, a paper that had Hasidic writings on it. It was in a gutter. It was in the streets with mud being dumped on it. And he said, how dare this happen? These are the deepest sacred texts of our Torah, the deepest teachings that we got from our teacher, the Baal Shem Tov, who got it from the spirit of Achia Shiloni, the deepest parts. And look what's happening to it. It's on the ground that we're stepping over. He felt it went too far. And he tried to change the direction. And the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe, Rav Shneir Zalman, whose birthday is today from the year 1745, he explained, insistent that we keep on spreading, even if it's going to have the ramifications of sometimes it's going to fall on the floor and be in the wrong places. Our job is to teach it. And he gave this beautiful parable that maybe some of you remember or heard before at a different class, or we had a Farbrengen. Maddie, I know you were there, Vivian, and several others. Last year, I think. Wow, I think last November. But the story of a king who once had an only son. This was to be the prince, then later to be the king that took over. But this prince fell deathly ill, and doctors from all over the kingdom and beyond were called to tend to this child, to the son, but to no avail. One specialist recommended that there's one chance of a cure. The only cure that perhaps can work is if you take the king's crown. There's the crown jewel, the fine diamond that makes the crown beautiful. If they take this crown and take the jewel off of it and grind it up and turn it into a liquid and give it to the king, to the prince, there's a chance he would live. And the Alter Rebbe continues his parable that the king said, do whatever it takes. So they started taking it off and grinding it, but by that time the prince went into an unconscious state where he couldn't even swallow anymore. And some of the doctors says, well, it's not worth it. Don't grind it up. He can't even swallow. But the king says, I don't care. Whatever it takes, just try to get a drop in. They ground it up, they gave it to him, and a drop went in and it cured him. A small portion of that mixture that they took from the crown jewel mixed with liquid, it went in. Saved the child's life. Indeed, the Alter Rebbe explained and continued that Hasidic teachings are the inner mystical dimensions of the Torah. It's the deep, it's the creme de la crop, it's the crown jewel of God's Torah, of the crown of God. And it must be treated with greatest care and respect. It's the crown of God. But ultimately, whatever it takes to get some of this crown jewel in a time of illness, when the Jews are in a state of exile and we have nowhere to turn to, and we need to be infused with inspiration and love and depth, it's worth grinding that up, even if some of it will spill around and not make it into the heart, but if some of it will make it into our mouth, some of it will be able to be understood, that can cure us, that can bring about Mashiach, it's all worth it. So with that, the Alter Rebbe explained is the meaning of why our teachings are all over, and even till today, some of the Hasidic groups are saying you can't teach on computers. It's too holy of a teaching to be able to give over virtually. You can't post things online because online is also a place of inappropriate things. But Chabad has always been on the fore, and actually Chabad.com, Chabad.org was one of the first 100 .coms on the internet in the early 90s. They have over 60 million unique hits a year. There's only 15 million Jews in the world. It's an astounding number of people that are just studying and learning. And I'm not here to make a push for Chabad.org, but the Rebbe referred to this story of the Alter Rebbe's parable, and the Rebbe was discussing, continuing this, that even after this parable was taught by the Alter Rebbe, there were still some, like the opponents of this, where Pinchas Karitzer agreed, and there came peace. But later in the late 1700s, there was a big spiritual decree where the Alter Rebbe, the first Chabad Rebbe who we're celebrating today, he was arrested by the Russian government. It was very dangerous. And obviously everything is from a spiritual standpoint. And he was asking, why did this happen? And the Rebbe explained that really what was happening was spiritually, they felt that it's gone too far. That the teachings of Chassidus, even after the parable of it's worth teaching, even if it's going to go in the gutter, but just to get some into our hearts, to grind up the crown jewel, the deepest teachings, but even after that, it was too much almost. And the Alter Rebbe felt maybe I should stop. And the Baal Shem Tov came to him spiritually and told him you have to continue. Once you started, you've got to go. And expanded even further with Chabad from the 1800s and on. But the point is to really be bringing the most sublime divine teachings and make it available, make it relevant, to climb the ladder from one level of Torah to another, and to take a quantum leap, to take an exponentially greater teaching from one level to the next, and to always keep on growing. It takes a lot of work, and it takes a lot of preparation to be able to study and to be able to keep on developing our way. And we know, listen to this is the kicker. When Mashiach comes, the level of learning will be infinitely greater than the Torah we have now. The depth of Torah that will be taught with Mashiach will be incredibly higher of a status that we are now. You think nowadays we're teaching deep Torah, wait until Mashiach comes. And we have to prepare ourselves to be able to handle that Torah. So to take that quantum leap, we need an incredible teacher. Who's going to be our teacher? Elijah. Listen to what type of teacher Elijah is. Let's see in the Rebbe's words again. So what we explained so far is Elijah is that perfect fusion of body and soul, which is the time of Mashiach. But now we're saying even further, we have to prepare ourselves to these in-depth teachings and get ourselves ready for it. Elijah is the guy for that. Let's see. Gail Giacomini. Did you have a chance to read it? I don't think so. You want to go ahead, Gail? This is from the Rebbe.
Yeah, I just had to unmute, sorry.
Yep.
There are a number of items that we find as preparatory steps for Moshiach. In Maimonides' words, Elijah's role will be to align the people and prepare their hearts for the Messianic era. It certainly must be so regarding the primary matter of the Messianic era, namely what Maimonides describes as the sages yearned for the Messianic era only so that they be free to engage in Torah wisdom, the opportunity to engage in understanding the knowledge of their Creator. It is necessary to align the Jewish people and prepare their hearts for that.
Awesome. Okay, thank you. So we're going a little over time, and I apologize, but there still is, I need to squeeze in a little more depth. Mashiach is going to have Elijah. What's another explanation of Elijah's role is something that's really cool. We know that Moshe had a sidekick. Who was Moshe's sidekick? Aaron. Aaron, his brother, his older brother actually, they worked together. Each of them brought something to the table that was crucial, needed for the Jewish people's freedom. In fact, Aaron is the one that brought the first 3 of the 10 plagues that came through Aaron. Aaron was the spokesperson for Moshe, but tell me if you knew this, Aaron was a man of peace. He was a guy that brought peace. Some of you heard me share this before, that Moshe, what do we sing in Simchas Torah? It's more of an Israeli song, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but there's a song that goes, Moshe emet v'torato emet, which means Moshe is true and his Torah is true, is truth. Moshe stands for truth. He couldn't stand bluff. Aaron stood for peace. Sometimes, for the sake of peace, you got to bend a little bit of the truth. For example, I was once driving on my way to Chabad on Redwood. It was pouring rain outside. It was actually at night. It was on my way back from a class, and there was a lady in by the bus stop, and there was no overhead, it was just a bench. And I pulled over and I said, "Do you need a ride?" And she says, she actually recognized me from, I walk to shul every Shabbos. So she knew, she wasn't Jewish, but she knew I was. And she says, "No, you're going, which direction are you going in?" And I said, "Which direction are you going in?" And she says, she pointed, the opposite direction of where I was going. And I said, "Oh, I'm going there also." So she's like, "Oh, okay." She hopped in and I gave her a ride. I lied, and I'll say that on record. But it was for the sake of helping someone that every now and then bending the rules of truth is needed. It's actually a big debate in law. It was a fight between the brothers Moses and Aaron. For the sake of peace, could you bend the rules of truth? So I'm not going to go into the whole class now. It's more of a debate and more Talmud in there. But Moshe's quality that he brought was truth. Aaron's quality that he brought was peace. Both were integral. Both are needed. In a similar vein, just like Moses, who redeemed the Jews from Egypt, needed a sidekick in Aaron, Mashiach, who will redeem the Jews from our current exile, will have Eliyahu serve alongside. Because Elijah will be very close to the people. And he's the one that's going to bring everyone in with love and inspiration, with peace and kindness, like we quoted before. This is now from the Midrash. Let's get another text in. Mrs. Berger, do you want to read this? You have to unmute yourself first.
The original redemption from Egypt was effected by 2 redeemers. As the verse states, he sent Moses his servant and Aaron whom he chose. So it will be in this generation 2 redeemers will be sent. Indeed, the verse states, I will send Elijah the prophet to you. That's one. The second, behold my servant, I will support him. It is for this reason that the verse states, send your light and your truth.
Awesome, thank you. Very well said. Okay, now finally we're going to wrap up the class with this last text that I think is stunning, and I hope it resonates with you as much as it resonates with me. Another thing that Elijah, again, where we're trying to explain is what's Elijah's role? Why is Elijah the guy tapped with bringing about Mashiach? So we've been giving several explanations. One is that he's the sidekick of Mashiach, who really is a man that will bring people together, will bring that peace, and will be close to the people. Another one we explained is, let me just go back here to the previous text. Sorry, guys. Another thing we explained is he personifies redemption because he's that perfect fusion of transforming physical matter to holiness, which is what we're going to do with Mashiach. Another thing is we have to make a quantum leap to a deeper teaching. Elijah is going to be that teacher to help us make that leap. But finally, the last one is, this one's really stunning. The goal of Elijah coming is to inspire the people to actually bring Mashiach. He's that inspiration we need to trigger us on the path to say, ladies and gentlemen, we can do this. It's up to us. We're going to make it happen. And it's already happening now. Every Jew and every person's inspiration is actually Elijah's calling. This is heavy duty stuff. Every time we act in a way of kindness to someone else, every time we step up for someone in need, you are in that moment being an Elijah for that person. You're being that figure of an angel. You're being that spiritual support and resource for a person in need. When you do that, you're triggering an asset of Elijah within you. To explain this a little further, it's going to get a little deep. You know, like now with COVID, there's like parts that are called, or people or areas that we could call them as super spreaders. It's like one person that has the virus so much and he sneezes, it's a super spreader. Or if the fan is blowing in a direction, whatever, you get what I mean. But similar, this idea of super, like magnified layers, there's also, every one of us have a soul that is connected. We're like a body. Each and every one of us, we're actually a part of the same body. Just like in a body, a person could get a little paperclip, but there's blood and that rushes there, and it's felt. The person is feeling uncomfortable, even in his heart and in his mind, that he's not able to rest because of blood or because of an ache. We all know this. You get a toothache, you can't sleep because you need to put your body at rest and you need an Advil. Or if you're, whatever it is, they give you anesthesia because your whole body feels it. So each and every one of us, we're actually parts of the same body. Some of us are the hands, we're more active with giving. Some of us are the heart, we're more emotional. Some of us are the shoulders, we carry the weight and the stress of so many other people. Some of us are the feet, we're more doers, but ultimately we're all parts of the same body. But then you have super souls that are really represent that their soul is something shared by everyone equally. While we're different limbs, we all have one soul. But there's people like Adam, the first person to live. He was a super soul. He was a soul that really is shared with every one of us. Part of his soul was divided and shared between all of our souls. It's a collective. We share it. So Kabbalah teaches that Adam, who was the original person, possessed such a soul, and all of our souls are splintered off from that original super soul. And by the same token, Moshiach also possesses such a soul, a shared soul, something that is active within me and you. We all have a fragment of the soul of Moshiach. So with that in mind, listen to this. The idea of Elijah, Eliyahu, rousing, inspiring us to teshuvah, rousing us to go in the proper way, and inspiring us is one and the same with actually what he's going to do when Mashiach comes. When an individual Jew is inspired to do a mitzvah, he or she, what are you doing? You're bringing a Mashiach part of you to the table. When I'm doing a mitzvah, I'm bringing that inspiration up. You're bringing a part of Mashiach, of that soul that's deep within. You're bringing it out. You're bringing it up. You're sharing it with others. More and more of us Jews doing mitzvahs, it collectively brings together the soul of Mashiach and makes that happen. Every mitzvah we do, it's actually sharing part of our soul with the Mashiach subconscious, bringing it out. So when it says that Elijah, who was the super soul, and it says he's the one that inspires us, every time we do a mitzvah and we be a support for someone else, we're being in a daily inspiration. We're being an Elijah at that moment. So in truth, every step of the way, we're doing a mitzvah, learning more Torah, or just helping another person, we're bringing out an Elijah part of us. We're bringing out the soul, the depth of the Mashiach soul. Let's see that inside. And Ava, let's see. I don't think you read yet. If I could have you read, Ava. I'm going to pull it up on the screen again. And this is the final text of the day. And hopefully it'll be understood because there's some good parts to it. Go. This is... tell you who it's from. This is from Rebbe Nachum of Chernobyl. He was a colleague of the first Chabad Rebbe. He lived in the 1700s. He died in 1797 in Ukraine. But a great giant of Torah. It actually says that he became very obese, not because of a lot of steak or beer. He became obese because of the great kavanah and intention that he had when he prayed that it literally expanded the bones of his body. That's just the type of person he was. But let's see what he says. Go ahead, Ava.
The verse states, "Lo, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming." The word "I will send," as opposed to, what is it, halasha?
Yeah, which really would mean the same thing, but it uses a specific word.
Okay. Is actually written in the present tense, which implies that it's already happening now. The truth is that all inspiration any Jew has toward their Father in heaven is the element of Elijah announcing all matters of perfection like Torah and prayer. Prior to perfection, there must be much yearning and desire, and that comes through Elijah, who inspires this great drive. Only after that does the element of Moshiach arrive. As the Baal Shem Tov stated, every Jew ought to prepare and polish the portion of Moshiach that is directly related to their soul. Moshiach's actual arrival is the culmination of the individual souls of all 600,000 Jews.
So, of course, there's many more than 600,000, but the Jews, when we left Egypt, we numbered 600,000 families. So that's considered the mega souls of the Jewish people. And continue.
For this reason, every Jew must work with the portion of Mashiach that is relevant to their soul until the entire collective body is unified constantly. May it be soon in our days. Such unity is impossible without a great amount of prior inspiration. This inspiration is called an announcement, and it is Elijah's role. Thus, prior to the perfection of Mashiach, Elijah's announcement will come to inspire the Jews' great yearning and desire.
Amazing. So just to conclude with this, just to summarize, something that I find to be so meaningful in this, the implication of what Ava just read, and just to summarize some of it, is very meaningful. Suddenly, Elijah's role that we've been studying this week and last is not just abstract. Elijah's coming and the resurrection, he holds the key and different things. It's not something that's going to happen just in the future. It now became an everyday occurrence. It happens every hour of your life. The entire notion of Elijah arriving to announce Mashiach's arrival is something that you and I can both do right now. Every time we are inspired to do something divine, whether it's let's go to a Torah class, let's share some inspirational stories with another, let's light Shabbos candles on time, let's do tefillin, let's help a friend, let's lend money to a person who's down the street that I know could really do it. Every time we have that inspiration that speaks to us, is actually Elijah's calling from our soul. It's an Elijah moment. And the more we do that, the closer we're getting to that end goal, to that destination. Mashiach is not some sort of abstract that will just fall from the sky. It's a process. And the train that we already boarded thousands of years ago, and it's already by its destination. The more mitzvahs we do now, which means the more Elijah is activated and bringing it about, the more fuel we have to get there quicker. And the quicker we arrive. May that happen now. The mitzvahs we do now are part of that journey. And it's all accumulating from what's been happening for generations, for thousands of years. So ladies, let's get cracking. Right now we have that incredible power to realize that there's an Elijah moment inside of us. It's waiting to be activated. When I do it and you do it, we collectively activate an Elijah part of our soul that is shared. My part is being activated. Your part is being activated. It comes from inspiration. So just to summarize some of the reasons of why Elijah was the one tapped with the job of bringing about Mashiach to share with us the news is because, quite simply, number one, Elijah personifies Mashiach. Mashiach is all about working with the mundane to make it divine, which is not like Moses, who was divine in body and soul naturally. His whole home was filled with light. And the home, like we said, is our body, which is the housing of our soul. For him, it was natural. It was all light. Elijah struggled. Like we said, the word Eliyahu equals the numerical value of behema. which is the animal side of him that struggles, that pushes you. Instead of using the money for charity, I want to use the money on vacation. Or not that vacation is bad, but it's more for me and less for you. And we need to bring about a selfless side to us. Elijah was able to bring that about through struggle and through work and through the transformation. And that's what Mashiach is all about, is struggling through in order to reveal the light. That was one thing of why Elijah is the guy tapped. Another one is there's a quantum leap for us to be able to understand the teaching of Mashiach. It's going to be pretty heavy stuff. Eliyahu is that perfect teacher to get us ready for that deeper teaching. And number 3 we explained is Moshe had a sidekick called Aaron. He was a man of peace. That's going to be similar to Elijah, who will be the sidekick of Mashiach, who also is the one that brings peace and unity among us. And finally, the kicker that we just said, and we're going to end with this, is we need to be inspired. And every time we have that inspiration activated from within us to do a mitzvah, to help another, to reach out, it's actually a part of our soul that is activating Mashiach quality. We have a part of our soul that is that super soul that belongs to Mashiach, and we each possess a spark of that soul of Mashiach. I need to bring it out when I do an inspiration and I share that. It's that part of a soul. Elijah is that trigger. So Elijah is not just waiting to come. Elijah's already here, already happening inside of me and you. It's already just being triggered. And every time we do that mitzvah, it's an Elijah-like moment, being a support for another. So that is
Rabbi.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sitting at the edge of my seat, and I'm like, I have to say something. So can I?
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like we have all been completely propelled into this right now with COVID. I feel like COVID has been the absolute instigator and catalyst for all of this to happen. Like, all of us are extending ourselves and doing so much more than we normally would for other people, and learning online like this. I'm doing more classes with you than I probably would if I wasn't online. And I just feel like it's really bubbling up right now. Like the fact that the way you've described it, this class, is just so spot on and very clear that we're all carrying each other because we're all a different part of that body. We're all part of the jigsaw. And together we're really moving forward, and it feels closer than ever right now to me.
Thank you, man.
I wanted to share that.
Yeah, really I feel this is it. Mashiach, it has to come now. It's right now, and we all have to do our part and stretch ourselves a little more. And God willing, Mashiach is here. It'll take away all illnesses, and it'll bring the cure to everything. And may that happen speedily, and bring the true unity that we need now more than ever. Thank you, Gail. I see you're asking about a text to support this. Yeah, so I think I could share this, the PowerPoint with you, if you're okay with that. Sure. There's also a textbook that I could get for you. I think it's, how much, Mrs. Berger, how much was it, $15 or something? I could either get you a textbook, or which is like a hard copy that you could see and Marsha Naomi puts up on the screen, but I could also just share you the online version. You're welcome, Maddie, for the great class. Working on himself and still a prophet. Yep, like we said. I'm just going to read from a private comment I got. We just finished canning some plum. We have garden. Okay, I guess. Awesome. I can't wait. Gail, I'll be in touch with you about that. And yeah, for sure, Gail. Thank you. Very kind. Just one question for Maddie. So does that mean the Mashiach could be all of us operating at a very high level? Yeah, it's going to happen when Mashiach comes. It's going to be me and you. We're going to keep our names. It's just operating in the best. Our soul is not going to be limited with any ailments or limitations of the body. It's going to be fully infused and fully transformed to be in line, in sync with other people and with our true self. We're going to be fully in balance. Awesome. I thought it was 6,000 years in the future. Thanks for sharing this online text. Thank you. Okay, awesome. Great. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm sorry I went a little over time, but I hope it was well worth it. And let's have a Mashiach week. Let's make this happen. Next week, we'll be learning Torah with a much better teacher, with Mashiach and Elijah themselves. Everyone have a great end to your week, and thank you all for joining.